You're listening to the Shout Podcast, the official health and well-being podcast from the Firefighters Charity.
Hello, how are you? My name's Kim Robson, and welcome to another episode of Shout Podcast from the Firefighters Charity. In this episode, we're going to hear 3 stories that illustrate 3 very different sides to life in and around the Firefighters Charity. First up, we'll hear from retired Buckinghamshire firefighter's wife Sherron Razey, who spent years holidaying at the charity's Harkham House Centre in Devon without realising that she too could be helped with a chronic pain condition that had all but destroyed her quality of life. A week with the charity, however, opened her eyes to what it could be like to not live in pain every day. We then hear from Hertfordshire Station Commander James Bull, who talked to Sophie Pierce earlier this week about his plans to take on one of the most gruelling land races in the world, all to raise funds for the Firefighters Charity and awareness of the mental health issues being faced by the fire services community. And to top off our trio of insightful stories, we'll join 3 of the charity's regional fundraising team, Kerry, Alan and Debbie, to find out how they plan to help you reach a monumental milestone in the Fire Family Challenge. If that wasn't enough, we've also got more of your incredible achievements in our Thank You To segment, and we'll hear from one CFO as to why he donates to the charity on a regular basis. So to get things underway, I caught up with Sherron Razey earlier this week to find out about the difference the charity has made to her.
My name is Sherron Razey. I'm the wife of an ex-firefighter who did 25 years in Aylesbury Fire Station in Buckinghamshire, along with some years at Wickham Fire Station. We've been connected with the Fire Brigade charity for many years, all his service life really. He's done lots of fundraising things like helmet cycles and runs and things like that. But we've supported Harkham House ever since the Fire Brigade first bought it. Nicholas used to go down on working parties, and we regularly, once a year, hired a bungalow and went down there and supported Harkham House in that way.
That's great. It's been really lovely that you've been able to give that support over the years as well, without maybe perhaps realising quite the bigger picture. But I know that you yourself had an operation, and was this was to do with your ankle, right? Did it have to be fused?
Yes, yeah. I've got osteoporosis very badly, and my left ankle completely collapsed. It as if it was broke. It completely disintegrated. I had cancer when I was 27, and I had a full hysterectomy, but I've never had HRT, so that's why I've got the osteoporosis. And so I had a big reconstruction job done on the ankle because they can't really give you false ankles; they don't really work. And it took me a long time. It took me three or 4 years really to get over it. I couldn't walk on it for a year. It was very painful, and it changed my life. Like, do you know what I mean? Because up until then I was very active, but then found that there was things that I couldn't do, and it left me with a few mobility issues, but couldn't get anywhere to get any help, and didn't know really where else to turn.
Obviously, it took a massive impact on your life. You said things had to change quite dramatically, mentally and physically, I guess.
Oh, yes. I mean, I had to give up work. By this time, Nicholas was already out of the brigade anyway and working full time. But when I had my operation, I needed a carer, so he had to give up work to be my carer. And we've never gone back to work after that. So it had a big impact, mentally as well as physically.
When did you first realise that you might be able to be helped yourself by the place that you'd been visiting on holidays then?
Well, we went down to Harkham House for a holiday, basically. And while we were down there, we both went over to one of the lectures because they said that, you could come along and sit into one of the lectures if you wanted. And I went to one on pain. And we went in the main house, we sat upstairs, and obviously we were a bit out of it because we weren't part of the group in the house. And as soon as the therapy lady started to talk, I felt as if she was talking to me. And I just burst out into tears. And I didn't stop crying for the whole hour I was there. And afterwards, she came over to me and she said to me, "I think we really need to do something with you," she said. And she asked me what the problem was. And I told her And I said, everything you've spoken about today, it's just opened a whole can of big worms with me. And she said, right, we'll get you both down and we'll give you a week down here and we'll see, if we can help you. And at the time, Nicholas was going through some problems with depression and sort of things like that. So it was a good opportunity for both of us to open things up and have a look at what we could do. And it's changed my life completely.
Did you, it sounds like it, did you snap it up immediately, or was there a little part of you that was thinking like, oh no,
No.
I'm not sure I can do
No,
this?
I snapped it up. I so wanted it. Because I was finding it increasingly difficult to do everyday tasks like going up and down the stairs, and I was in constant pain, so I was taking loads and loads of painkillers. I was taking 12, 13, 14 painkillers a day, and was still in pain. And so half my brain was here and half my brain was somewhere else, like, if you know what I mean. And all the doctor could do was keep giving me stronger and stronger painkillers. So I was on morphine and all sorts of things. And I thought, this can't be right. Do you know what I mean? Something somewhere isn't right. And so we seized the opportunity.
For someone so active as yourself, as you were beforehand as well, it must have been so frustrating. So anything to get that back.
Yeah, to get some sort of normality in my life, because I felt that the whole of my life had changed. I'd lost my job because I could no longer work, so I lost my independence. But it was just the day-to-day things. It was like things like getting off the toilet, getting out of the chair. I was getting out of the chair like somebody of 90. My mother-in-law got out of the chair better than I could. And I couldn't walk anywhere because I got so tired and I would fall over. As soon as I got to Harkham, and they looked at me and said, right, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to plan the week. It was like a light bulb moment. Literally just like that. Just as if somebody switched the light bulb on.
So tell me about the week then. How did it go?
The first couple of days were very difficult because one of the main things I wanted to do was come off all the painkillers. And I felt that I could only do it with their support. And so the first couple of days was quite difficult, and I was gradually coming off the painkillers, and then I had a really bad night where I had lots of withdrawal symptoms from the painkillers. I just sat and cried all night because I couldn't cope with it. I couldn't cope with what they were asking me to do. I couldn't see a thing of going forward at all. And because a lot of the problems I had I didn't realise were mental, going to the workshops and everything, and opening up about things was also very difficult. And it was as if somebody had got a champagne bottle and shook it and took the cork off. And all this emotion came running out one night. And I was up all night and I was sick and I was ill. And so I went over in the morning to breakfast. I couldn't eat breakfast and everything. And I said to one of the ladies over there, what sort of night I'd had and everything. And she said, it's not a problem, Sherron. She said, we do see this from time to time. You tell me what you want to do today. And I said, well, this morning I want to go back to the bungalow and I want to sleep and I want some time on my own. And she said, fine. She said, you come back over here when you're ready. And I went over after lunch, picked it up and ran with it right from then onwards. But I just had to sort it out in my own head. Because half the problem was all these painkillers and all this emotion was my safety blanket. And they were gradually taking my safety blanket away from me. And I didn't know what I was going to use, where I was going to go, how I was going to be. Do you know what I mean? It was difficult. But as soon as I, got up and thought, right, we're going to go with this, we're going to carry on. And I went back over there and she said, well, what have you decided? I said, no, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to finish the week off and I'm committed to this. And she said, well, we can work with you then. She said, as long as you're committed and you want to carry on with it, she said, we will get through it. And I never had a problem after that at all.
You're very brave.
And it's completely changed my life. I can't really explain it enough. I now swim all the time. I cycle. I walk with my dog. I enjoy the outside. I play bowls. I couldn't have done any of that if I hadn't gone to Harkham.
And that's quite an incredible story because I know it's been a long journey, but that was 1 week, and that 1 week really changed everything for you.
Turned my life around. Yeah. It made me realise that you can do things, but you have to do perhaps in a different way. You know, if you set your mind to it, you could achieve anything. You might not achieve it the same as the person sitting next to you, and they might do things a different way, and they might be better at some things, but it doesn't stop you doing it. Whereas I had forgotten all that, like, do you know what I mean? I felt that I couldn't do anything. And that is, it to me, was the best thing.
Sherron, you're an inspiration. You are such an amazing lady.
The thing with Harkham is that it strips away. It's a bit like a layer cake. They strip away the layers that you've put on to protect yourself. So when you have something like this injury that I had, you build up these layers to protect yourself, but in actual fact you're not. So they to me, stripped away all the layers and got down to the bare bones of it and said, right, now we can rebuild it, and we can rebuild it in a different way. That's how I felt it worked. You know, it takes time. It takes commitment. I mean, I could very easily sit in the chair day after day and say, I'm not going to do anything, but that doesn't get you anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't make you any free of the pain. The less I do, I'm just as in as much pain as if I do something. So I might well get up and do something. I might not be able to take the dog for a walk because I'm in too much pain, but I could go for a swim instead. It's being realistic about what works for you and what you feel you can do. And it's very much little steps to start with, and after little steps become bigger steps, and then it becomes normality.
And if you were meeting a complete stranger and you could just share one thing about the charity and what it's done for you, what would you say about the Firefighters Charity?
I would say it's a fantastic support line. They're really there for you, and they can't help you unless you contact them. Unless you pick up the phone and phone somebody and talk to them, they can't help you because they don't know. If they don't know that you're suffering, they can't help you. And, you know, once you link into that support, you know it would be good for them.
And what about those that are fundraising at the moment to keep that money coming in? Any message for them?
Oh, fantastic. You know, keep on doing it. I mean, we try to do our bit, you know, like we buy the raffle tickets and, you know, we go down to the car wash, and we're still quite involved with the brigade in that way, you know, and if we see anything that's coming up that the lads are doing, we send them a donation, like, do you know what I mean? Because that is so important. And you know, especially now with things being difficult and all our lives have changed, you know, I just hope in some way that it can carry on. But obviously I do realise that it's difficult times for everybody.
Sherron, I think you're amazing. You're such an inspirational lady, and I hope that you continue to just keep going as you are, because I just think you're amazing. Sharing the story like you have done today, Sherron, is definitely going to help. I think people are just, more and more people are taking that step and, you know, picking up the phone and calling the charity and getting some help. So if by sharing your story today, that's helped one more person call, then we've done our job.
Yes, definitely. Definitely so.
The Marathon des Sables is one of the toughest running races in the world, covering 250 kilometres across the Sahara Desert. For Hertfordshire Station Commander James Bull, however, it's an opportunity to raise money for the Firefighters Charity and awareness of mental health issues affecting the fire community, as Sophie Pierce discovered when she spoke to him earlier this week.
Hi James, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is James Bull. I'm with Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service, and I have been in 20 years now. I'm currently a station commander, responsible for a couple of stations in Hertfordshire in the same district.
Have you enjoyed your career?
For the most part, I have. It's like any job, I would say. You get ups and downs, but I guess the spectrum of the ups and downs are on the far ends of each scale. That's the problem. You know, the highs are really high and the lows can be really, really low. So it depends on, what you've been dealing with. But for a job, generally speaking, it's more than a job. I've always said that it's more of a way of life. So in that respect, I have enjoyed it, but in another respect, it has, I'm not the person I was 20 years ago, put it that way. So it has robbed me of the person I once was. But I kind of put that down to, that's the price you have to pay sometimes. That's the greater good.
First, I want to ask you about an epic fundraising venture that you were meant to be taking part in this year and twice has been delayed because, like everything, well, the world has been disrupted by the coronavirus. But tell us what you were meant to be doing and hopefully will still be doing next year.
So I am doing the Marathon des Sables, which is considered the toughest foot race on earth. It's there's many other difficult races out there, but this is, I guess, the most iconic, the most famous, that every endurance athlete wants to tick off at some stage in their life. So in a nutshell, I will be covering 250 kilometers across the Saharan desert, carrying all my own supplies for the week, and I will be completing a marathon a day across the Sahara, apart from day 4, which is an ultra marathon, which is 2.5 marathons. So yes, I will. After about 6 days, I will have covered 250 kilometers. So it's every day. It's considered a multi-stage event, so it's pretty relentless. Obviously, the terrain is some of the most inhospitable found on the planet. The temperatures can exceed 50 degrees centigrade. You are essentially dehydrated from the beginning because you are losing more fluid than you will get given back. So you can never replenish your fluids. So you're in a constant state of dehydration. The injuries you've probably seen pictures of it. If you look in on Google for pictures of Marathon des Sables feet, that's all you'll need to put in, and you will see the horrific things that happen to people's feet because of the sand, the friction, the constant running for 6 days across that environment. And then throw in the mix at night time, the temperature surprisingly in the desert drops to near freezing. So it's very, very cold, and that is when the creepy crawlies come out. So you've got the threat of scorpions, snakes and camel spiders invading your open-sided bivvy, because we were essentially just lying on the floor in the desert with an open-sided bivvy for shelter, which often gets blown down during sandstorms in the night. So it's not exactly 5-star luxury.
Sounds great.
Yes, not for everyone.
And as if it wasn't enough that you're doing this amazing thing to raise money for the firefighters charity, you're also doing it to raise awareness of the mental health issues that are being faced by the fire and rescue service. Tell me a bit more about that.
This whole challenge started, it was a double journey for me, not only the physical challenge of the event itself, but I, for the first time ever, exposed my own experiences with mental health in a bid to raise awareness of mental health, specifically in the emergency services. It's been a very, very private affair for me, like I say, for 20 years. So coming clean, if you like, for want of a better term, has been a massive journey for me, and something I'm still not comfortable with, but I'm trying to get used to it, because what I found is that if someone can relate to a personal experience, they can compare it to their own experience, and then they can draw strength from that and be inspired to actually go and seek help themselves. So it really only works. It's all well and good talking about these issues, but it only really works if you actually expose a real life case study. And so I revealed my deepest, darkest secrets that have been locked up for a long, long time. And like I say, I'm not comfortable with that, but I'm having to get used to it, because it has more of an impact if you're going to help others.
What response have you had from people since doing so?
Well, actually, really positive. I think, like a lot of things that we keep secret, it's often the perception that it will be seen as, negatively or as a weakness, or people will take the mickey. But actually, I've had a lot of positivity, and that's been really, really nice, and surprising. Actually, I didn't expect that positive response, but it has also initiated a lot of feelings of paranoia and anxiety that there are people behind the scenes, the trolls, the skeptics, the haters, that are probably talking about me behind my back now that I've exposed my story. And maybe, your mind starts working in overtime, thinking that people probably just think you're doing it for attention or whatever, but that's probably just paranoia, and that's all part of my own issues with my emotions. But so I'm trying to get past that. There probably are people like that out there, but ultimately I'm trying to look at the bigger picture. If I can just help even a few people by exposing my story for others to relate to, then it will have served a purpose.
You used the word exposed a few times. Is that how you feel? Do you feel exposed for being vulnerable?
I do, yeah, because this has been very, very private for a long time, and I've become adept, at hiding these emotions and my mental health. And the last thing I ever thought I would do was open up about it. It's just not in my character. It's not in the character of a lot of blokes, and that's all part of the problem with all of this, isn't it? To raise awareness of that, to get the statistics show that it's likely to be men under the age of 45 that commit suicide because of mental health problems, and it's happening a lot. So we don't open up, and we don't talk enough, and that's all part of the problem. So when I say expose, it does feel like I've exposed my, that was my Achilles heel, if you like, and people didn't know about it until now. So I'm just try not to think too deeply about that, and hope that actually I've done the right thing, and it might help a handful of people.
And what would you say to someone who was struggling with their own mental health and was nervous to talk about it, like you were, nervous about the response and the reception that it might get, to admit this side of themselves that they've kept private? What advice would you give to someone like that?
So what I would say to people is that what I've found so far, and I hope it remains to be the case, that these things that we're worried about exposing the truth, it's often just the perception of how people will see it. The reality is most people in my job certainly are more willing to try and offer an ear or to help rather than mock any kind of mental health afflictions. So I think we all fear the perception rather than the reality.
And have you ever sought support for your mental health yourself?
This goes back a long way for me. So I have dipped in and out of treatment for years. I had sort of a breakdown in 2006, and ever since then I've dipped in and out of treatment. But I was always looking for a quick fix, because I was a lot younger back then, and full of testosterone, and I just wanted a quick fix to be on my way and go back to normal. But obviously mental health issues, they're often deeply embedded, and it doesn't work like that. You've got to commit to a course of treatment. You've got to, it's almost like an addict, I guess, like they say to addicts, that you've got to recognize that you have a problem in order to be helped. It's not a quick fix thing, and you have to commit to any kind of therapy. And that I never did do that. I always dipped in. So I always dropped out of any kind of treatment before it had really taken any effect. So it wasn't until the last sort of 2-3 years, I would say, that partly I grew up. I had a family. Your perspective changes. And it wasn't just about me anymore. My issues weren't just affecting me, they were affecting my family and affecting home life. So this wasn't just about me anymore. And the way I saw it is I had to get fixed. So my issues didn't affect my family and my son growing up. And that was the catalyst for me. That was the motivation to really commit to some therapy, whether I thought it was working or not, but to see it out and give it the chance. And thankfully, for the first time ever, I really have committed to treatment, and I've sort of been undergoing that for about 3 years now. I commonly say I'm not fixed. I'm aware that I may never be fixed, but I see myself as a work in progress. But I'm making the right steps to develop coping mechanisms and different ways of looking at things and trying to process information differently. I learned to spot the triggers to my depression and low mood, and I can try and do things about it before I really sort of get into a slump. So yeah, it has had a really positive effect. I still struggle with it. I still don't like going. I still see that, the stigma attached to it. And I hate the fact that I have to go for therapy, because I feel, it makes you feel like there's something wrong with you. But I'm also accepting of the fact that it's doing me good in the long run, and doing my family good. So I'll continue with it until, I'm sort of told I don't need to anymore, I guess.
The event is currently, touch wood, due to happen in the new year. Is that right?
Yeah, so it was originally supposed to happen in April 2020. Because of COVID, it got pushed to September. I was supposed to be going this weekend, in fact.
Oh no!
And then I found out 2-3 weeks ago that it had been knocked on the head again, and now it's been pushed back again till April next year. So it will have been a full year from when I should have originally have done it. Obviously, that's had a massive knock on with training.
Well, good luck for it when it does happen. We will be keeping fingers and toes crossed for you, and also fingers and toes crossed that a camel spider doesn't crawl into your sleeping bag. And that it goes really well for you.
Thank you very much. And my Just Giving page has been posted up on social media by the Firefighters Charity on a few occasions now, and we're actually, if anything, the delay has helped with fundraising, because it's given me more time to push the story out there, and with all the sort of media attention on it recently, it's actually generated quite a few more donations. So we're up to over £3,500 now, and with still a few months to go before I head back out to the desert. So still plenty of time to get that figure moving upwards.
Well, thankfully, we don't all have to run across the desert for days on end if we want to raise money. There is a simpler way, as Kerry James, Alan Nell and Debbie Rushbrook explained when they got together for a chat.
Hi everyone, my name's Kerry James. I'm currently the interim regional fundraising manager at the Firefighters Charity. I've been with the charity over 7.5 years, and I'm based in the south of the country. And I'm delighted to have two of my colleagues here with me today, which is Alan and Debbie. So if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
I'm Alan Nell, based up in Cheshire, up in the northwest of England. I've been here about 7 years. I look after the fundraising, kind of in the northwest and Yorkshire and Humberside areas, so kind of across the north of England.
Hi there, I'm Debbie Rushbrook. I'm the Community, Corporate and Events Fundraiser. I've been with the charity for 5 years, and I'm based in the West Midlands.
It's our pleasure today. It's great to share with the podcast listeners and supporters that we've raised over £160,000 over the past few months through our Fire Family Challenge. Back in March, this is when we went into lockdown, our team was looking at ideas of how we were going to fundraise. Usually months of planning into a campaign takes place, but with all the team pulling together, it took 2 weeks from start to launch. So, Alan, Debbie, why do you think it's been so well received?
Yeah, I think it's been well received at the campaign in terms of the early days of lockdown when COVID came along. I think people were looking for something to do, a bit of direction, something to focus their time into, try and keep active mentally and physically, and sometimes. And I just think it was a great way for people to do their bit, maybe inspired by Captain Tom's heroics in his garden, that people could do something at their home as well and really support the frontline workers on that one.
Yeah, and certainly Fire Family Challenge has been fantastic. It really encourages people and our supporters to be creative, to come up with their original and unique idea. Certainly meets social distancing criteria, and absolutely, it's definitely inclusive for all ages and abilities to pick up a challenge that suits them and their lifestyle, families, work commitments.
Totally agree. And it was about our message being about us being in it together, and an opportunity to share good news stories, considering the kind of current situation we all find ourselves living in at the moment. So guys, what are your particular highlights from our Fire Family Challenge?
Across the areas I work, there's so many. It's hard to even single some out. I mean, I've had people running around the fire station for 24 hours, and I've had people knitting for 24 hours. So it's people based at home who are locked down in isolation to people who could still be quite active, but only in the confines of their fire station. Some of the highlights for me is probably Cheshire Fire and Rescue Service, who actively, really rallied round and supported the charity, and that every station has taken on an event for the charity, if that be running a marathon around the drill yard or cycling for 10 days solid at the station. They took it upon themselves to really rally around and support the charity.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, it's such a tricky one to answer. There's been so many that I've enjoyed following and supporting over the summer. But definitely Dave, who's a retired firefighter from Worcestershire. Dave did a head shave, but was quite unique because he shaved half of his beard off and half of his hair off at the same time, which made for some brilliant social media stories. So it's absolutely brilliant. He raised in the region of £2,800, definitely attracted a lot of support, and including local press as well. So yeah, he got this really strange sort of diagonal head shave. So I called him Diagonal Dave, which kind of stuck. So yes, that was really good. Thanks, Dave.
For me, I think personally, I thought it was great. And, as a team, all the community corporate events fundraising team took on a challenge together. So someone kick-started it off. So we did a 4x5K relay, and then we nominated a number of members of our team. So I think it really brought our team together and able to share our stories with our supporters, and showing that we want to get behind supporting our beneficiaries as well. So do you think, guys, people have been more sympathetic towards the charity during the pandemic?
It's definitely highlighted the work that the charity do. And not just our charity, but the charity sector in general. And I think that public have certainly seen the rally cry from all charities, but certainly from ours, and that we were struggling, and we still are. We still need all the support we can get. But it's a nice way for everyone to rally around, come together, and support the charity in our time of need as well. We're so often there for the fire service and the community in their times of need. It's great that everyone's giving something back in our times of need, and what people would go and do to support our charity. It's been so heartwarming.
Certainly for our team, we really believe that it's a privilege to work for an organisation that supports the amazing fire and rescue service community. To work closely with those on the front line and hear all about the amazing stories of their role, it's just amazing. So yeah, it's been a really great period for us.
No, I totally agree, guys. I think that the community recognise all the sacrifices those in the fire and rescue service make, and they continue to do and protect us, and that was their way of supporting our charity, to allow us to continue to raise money to keep supporting them. So guys, we want to get this Fire Family Challenge, like I said, we raised over 160,000 so far, and we want to get to the 200,000 mark. We saw some people do some extraordinary things over the summer, but is it going to be harder over the winter, or are people just going to have to get a bit more creative?
I think we could definitely smash through the £200,000 mark. I think the imagination and passion within the supporters is phenomenal. Obviously, the world of fundraising has changed. Looking ahead, our traditional Christmas campaign of collections and stuff like that is pretty much not going to happen. We can't imagine our traditional fundraising will go. So we're really looking at virtual events and still giving that flexibility for people to still support us over the winter months. And we really need that support more than ever.
Absolutely. I mean, I ideas are endless. The rate of we're getting a lot of inquiries coming through, and people signing up to different challenges for us. But as a team, we'll certainly be focusing on launching our Christmas fundraising ideas. And 2 examples to mention now are our big Christmas night in and our 5K virtual Santa Dash.
And we'd also welcome any ideas from anyone else that are staging things for us that we can share with others. Keep checking our website for more news and information about these exciting ways in which you can support our charity at www.firefighterscharity.org.uk. How can our regional fundraising team support people listening to this who might want to take on a challenge for us?
Yeah, so it's really easy, to be honest. Just go to our website on the main screen. The Five Family Challenge should be there. Just register your interest of what you're planning to do. And basically, the fundraising team is there to support you. We'll get in touch with you and we'll give you help and advice on going forward.
Yeah, certainly by contacting our fundraising team, we can help with your idea, help to formulate that and make sure that you're maximising the fundraising that you can do. Definitely here to help with advice. We've certainly with an online fundraising page, we can help to promote your challenge on social media, and we can help with materials too.
No, I think it's great. I think we've given everyone a bit of a flavour of the Five Family Challenge and how we can help support our supporters. So as a little bit of a sign off, Alan, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you for everyone who's gone the extra mile to support their charity. It's been phenomenal to see what people can do physically and mentally to support their charity. And I just hope we can keep it going, get through that £200,000 mark and keep supporting our beneficiaries going forward. Yeah,
certainly a big thank you to everyone who has and is supporting us through these difficult times. We can get to that £200,000 mark, no problem. So yeah, thank you. It's really humbling to work with you. Thank you.
Add to that sentiment, huge thank you. Our charity couldn't be here to help those in the fire and rescue service and communities if you weren't here to help support us. So we're in this together. As a team, and together we can go forward and support the charity and support those in the fire and rescue community and their families. Thank you.
It's great to hear that there's support for those of us wanting to do a bit of fundraising. And again, loads of you have been in touch to tell us what you've been up to over the last few weeks. So we've squeezed as many of your fundraising highlights as we can into our thank you twos. Here we go. A huge thank you to the team at Nottingham Fire and Rescue Service for organising an online Zumba event over 4 days, raising £973. Hayley Griffin ran 2.6 miles every day for 26 days to raise a fantastic £521. A team of 12 firefighters from Congleton Fire Station climbed the Congleton Cloud to the equivalent height of Olympus Mons, a volcano on Mars that's over 13 miles high. They raised an incredible £1,355. The crew at Penkeith Fire Station, meanwhile, completed a 3,300-mile virtual cycle of the UK coastline, taking it in shifts to ride 24 hours a day over 10 days. They absolutely smashed their target and raised £7,459. Thomas Hayward raised £525 when he took on an ambitious challenge to run 100 miles in 24 hours, comprising of 30 laps of a 3.3-mile loop of Chelsea. And congratulations to Bella the dog, who ran a mile a day for 1 month as a way of saying thank you to the incredible firefighters who rescued her when she fell down a well. Bella raised a pawsome £145. Andy Morse demonstrated that the Five Family Challenge isn't all about marathons and virtual cycle rides. He raised £213 by playing Ember, a virtual firefighting game, pledging to be hit virtually by a water balloon whenever someone donated over £10. And well done to the crew at Nantwich Fire Station for completing an epic 24-hour static bike ride challenge. They cycled for 416 miles, the distance of Nantwich to Harkham House, raising £1,495. In terms of amazing rescues, crews from Stradbroke and Ipswich were called to rescue Ted the horse, who was stuck on the edge of a ditch in thick hedging. The horse was thankfully safely removed. And finally, a big shout out to all the fire stations across the country who are hosting a socially distanced car wash this autumn, as well as those of you who will be attending to support your local fire services community. You know, we cannot thank you enough for your generosity during this challenging time. Of course, as well as fundraising challenges, the other crucial way in which you can support the Firefighters charity is by setting up a regular donation. Here's Durham and Darlington Chief Fire Officer Stuart Errington to explain why doing so was so important to him.
I've contributed to the firefighters' regular giving scheme from my first pay slip in the fire and rescue service, and it's really, really important that we do so. It means that you're given without having to think about it, and it also means that the charity can rely on that regular income from everyone who gives through that route. What's also important, though, is that we continue to review just how much we're given. It obviously wouldn't be the same amount if I was given now to what I was given 28 years ago. So everybody needs to continue to think about how much they're given, how much they can afford, and really help the charity out in their time of need.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Shout Podcast. Thanks for listening. As ever, please tell your friends and colleagues to listen, subscribe and review. All the information you need to do so is on the website and on the Firefighters Charity's social media channels. Until next time, take care and stay safe.
You've been listening to the Shout Podcast. For more information on the show and how the Firefighters Charity could support you, check out www.firefighterscharity.org.uk.